think about sacred vestments from ancient scripture, we almost always picture robes of gold and linen for a male priesthood. But what if there's a whole other set of holy garments that we've kind of overlooked? Today, we're diving into an ancient text that describes, in incredible detail, the sacred attire of a prophetess named Miriam. So we have all these super detailed descriptions of holy garments for priests, but what about for prophetesses? It's a pretty simple question, right? But it opens the door to this lesser-known but, wow, incredibly significant tradition of female spiritual leadership and their sacred clothing. So, our journey starts in a fascinating passage from the third book of Moses, and it describes these clothes of service made not for the priests we always hear about, but specifically for the prophetess Miriam and her daughters for their own sacred duties. And right from the get-go, the text makes something absolutely crystal clear. As you can see in this quote, these were not just some customary clothes. Nope, they were divinely commanded, which puts them on the exact same level of sacred importance as any other holy vestments you read about in Scripture. The text describes these garments with just incredible precision, calling the process cunning work. So let's do a little ancient fashion breakdown, shall we? We're going to deconstruct this attire piece by piece to see what made it so special. All right, the main event, the foundational piece, is called the Mițpaḥath. The text gets really specific, saying it was made with cunning work. Now, this wasn't just simple weaving. This was the work of a master craftsman, blending threads of vibrant color with actual gold. And the materials themselves, I mean, come on, they were incredibly rich. Just imagine pure gold, beaten so thin that it could be cut into wires and then woven directly into the fabric, right alongside these deeply symbolic colors of blue, purple, and scarlet. The final result must have been absolutely breathtaking. So, how in the world was this stunning garment worn? Well, the text tells us it was fastened at the shoulders and then secured with what's called a curious girdle. Now, the word curious here probably means something like skillfully or artfully made. And get this, it was crafted from the exact same gold and linen weave, creating this beautiful, unified, seamless look. And this detail really shows that the garments were about way more than just beauty. Set right on the shoulders were what the text calls a Urim and Thummim, sacred objects that were often used for getting divine answers. But here they have a really unique purpose. They are stones for a memorial, specifically to commemorate the faith of the daughters of Israel. Next up, a breastpiece was added. And again, the text is careful to note it was the work of a skilled craftsman. It had these unusual dimensions, short but wide, and it featured a single row of 3 very distinct gemstones, a carnelian, a pearl, and an onyx. You can tell this was a very specific and deliberate design. The detail work here is just phenomenal. The text describes these thin, wreathen, or twisted chains of pure gold and even tiny bells attached to the hem of the robe. And as we're about to see, these were not just for decoration. They had a distinct and very active function in worship. Beyond all the ornate outer layers, the text also details a full set of undergarments for Miriam and her daughters. We're talking woven coats, goodly bonnets, which are basically head coverings, dresses, and another girdle, all made of fine linen. This was a complete, layered set of sacred attire, the whole shebang. And the final piece, the crowning glory, was literally that, a crown. It was a plate of pure gold, fastened with a blue lace, and it bore the most sacred inscription possible, Holiness to YHVH. This was the ultimate statement of consecration and purpose for anyone who wore it. So, here's the crucial point. This was not just ceremonial dress. This was functional spiritual attire. Every single element, from the stones on the shoulders to the bells on the hem, had a specific meaning and a designated purpose within their service. And the text breaks down the purpose of each component perfectly. The Urim and Thummim, they served as a memorial of faith. The bells, they were explicitly for ministering through song and dance. And the crown, well, that was a bold, visible declaration of holiness to God. You know, throughout this entire passage, one phrase appears again and again and again. As Yahweh instructed Moses and Zipporah, the text is relentless in reminding the reader that these designs were not a human idea. They were a divine command, which just underscores their absolute importance. So, why does a detailed clothing description from an ancient text matter to us today? Because it doesn't just describe the past. It sets a precedent that, according to other texts, actually becomes a prophecy for the future. First, the text establishes this really clear historical precedent. It wasn't just that Miriam and her daughters served. It stated that the daughters of Miriam would lead all of Israel in celebration. That sets a massive foundation for female spiritual leadership in worship. And right here is where we see the prophetic link. This quote declares that the past is a pattern for the future. Just as the daughters of Miriam led worship back then, the text prophesies that the daughters of Israel will lead again in worship, in ritual, and in learning in the last days. Which leaves us with a really powerful question to chew on. This deep dive into ancient garments isn't just a history lesson. It's a case study in how a detailed scriptural precedent can become the foundation for a modern prophetic vision. It challenges us to see the powerful connections between our past and our future